Spread wider, the lonely 70-year-old rancher said, his voice rough like the dry earth beneath his boots. I'm not stopping until my seed takes root. The words were not meant for any person. They were meant for the land. The ranch had been quiet for too many years. Wind moved through the tall grass like a whisper from ghosts, bending stalks that had once stood proud and green. The old rancher stood at the edge of the field, hands trembling, not from weakness alone, but from memory. Every fence post, every scar in the soil, remembered a younger man who had believed time would never outrun him. His name was Elias Crow, though no one called him that anymore. There was no one left to call him anything. 70 winters had passed over his head. He had buried his wife before the first gray hair touched his beard. He had buried his only son after a drought year that took more than crops. Since then, the ranch had become less a home and more a responsibility, something that refused to die, just like him. Neighbors had long since sold their land. Younger men with louder dreams had moved on to towns with railroads and lights. Elias stayed. Not because he was brave, but because leaving would mean admitting that everything he had built had failed. Each morning, he woke before the sun. Not out of habit, but because sleep brought memories he could no longer afford. He ate in silence, stared at an empty chair, then walked outside where the land waited without judgment. This year was different. The soil had been dry for years, but Elias had felt something change beneath his boots when he walked the fields that spring. A softness. A quiet readiness. He knelt down despite the pain in his knees and pressed the earth between his fingers. You're not done yet, he whispered. Neither am I. People would have laughed if they heard him talking to dirt. But the land had listened longer than any human ever had. He widened the fields himself. Day after day, he tore down old boundary markers, moved stones, broke ground farther than he ever had before. His body protested, but he ignored it. Pain meant he was still alive. Sweat meant he still had something to give. Spread wider, he told the empty horizon, driving the plow deeper. I'm not stopping until my seed takes root. By seed, he meant hope. He meant proof. He meant that when he was gone, something living would remain. One afternoon, a stranger appeared at the edge of the ranch. A boy, no older than 16, skinny, dust-covered, eyes too old for his face. Elias watched him from a distance, hand resting near the fence, not in fear but caution. The West had taught him that desperation made people dangerous. The boy didn't cross the line. He just stood there. I'm not here to steal, the boy said. I just heard there was work. Elias studied him. He saw hunger, yes, but also something else. The same stubborn emptiness he'd seen in the mirror for decades. You know how to plant? Elias asked. The boy shook his head. But I can learn. That was enough. Days passed, then weeks. Elias taught without many words. How to read the sky. How to feel the soil. How to wait. The boy listened like the land did, quietly, completely. At night, the ranch felt less empty. Not full. Never full again. But less hollow. They planted together. Row after row. Wider than Elias had ever dared before. His hands bled. His back bent lower each day. Still, he didn't stop. You should rest, the boy said once. I will, Elias replied, when it grows. The rain came late that season. When it did, it came hard. Water soaked into the earth, darkening it, feeding what lay hidden beneath. Elias stood in it, rain running down his face like tears he'd forgotten how to cry. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe. Green shoots broke through the soil weeks later. Fragile. Small. Alive. Elias knelt again, touching them with reverence. There you are, he whispered. Took your time. His body began to fail faster than the crops grew. Coughs lingered. His hands shook more. But each morning, when he walked the fields and saw the green spreading wider, he felt lighter. The boy stayed. Not because Elias asked him to. But because roots had a way of holding. When the harvest finally came, it wasn't the largest the land had ever seen. But it was enough. More than enough. Elias sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun dip low, painting the fields gold. The wind moved through the crops, bending them gently, like a promise kept. I didn't stop, he murmured. I made it take. The land answered in silence. And that silence was not empty anymore.